guys, we are out in our first winter storm of the season. We're going to get a little over a foot of snow with this first round. Good opportunity to get out here and try to track down some deer since we got a fresh coat of snow on the ground. Easier to follow the trail and find out where they've been bedding it recently. And that'll kind of give us a very early baseline on where to come looking during next year's shed hunt, which will start right around the end of December and into January. We've even found sheds all the way up into March and April, so there's a lot of different factors on when the deer will drop their antlers. Right now, I'm just out here hiking around a little bit this morning, enjoying the winter weather and following some very loose trails to see where HB and his herd might be running, which is a little bit different area than where I'm used to seeing them at according to the track so far. So I'm going to keep tracking them a little bit, see if we can catch up with them some, and then we'll be heading down to camp later on in the episode to get some winter work done. We got a lot of traffic activity here on the south ridge of HB's woods. They'll be heading down here. There's a lot of brush, a lot of down treetops and things like that that they can shelter in. Plus the south ridge offers protection from the primary winds. There's food sources available in the area and a little creek running down at the bottom of the ravine where they can still get some access to running water if they need it. This is where they tend to travel to when things get a little tense further up into the woods. I started going up to one of their primary bedding grounds, and I didn't see any foot activity up there, so I circled back down around here to the south. We're just following some loose trails along the southern ridge now to see if we might be able to catch up with them. But the snow's picked up quite a bit, so even if I do catch up with them, they're going to be a little bit hard to spot because it's almost whiteout conditions even here in the forest. But we'll keep looking. They have almost near whiteout conditions now. I can only see maybe 50-75 yards in front of me in any direction. Lost the trail. It dropped down to one deer just sort of trotting along by herself, and then it just faded out completely. The trail's just a little bit too old with all this snowfall. Unless I kick something up recent, chances are I'm not going to see much of anything. Here's another trail heading back up where did I came. It's so cold. And I'm just sort of aimlessly wandering right now. Trying to pick back up another trail. This is another single deer running along by itself. Whenever I first pulled up to the woods, it wasn't snowing. But now my camera is completely covered in snow and ice. And it's snowing so heavy that I'm starting to lose what trails that were here earlier. The ground's still pretty warm, so I'm not expecting this snow to hold up for very long. But it's supposed to snow for a couple of days, and that might give us enough opportunity to get up here and start getting some patterns down. Until then, I'm just going to make my way back up through what I know to be their past primary bedding and feeding areas, and then we'll be heading down to camp. I got a lot of work down there at camp that I got to try to get done today. Even with this snowstorm, I still got to get some more clay out for the fireplace, and I need to get it before the ground completely freezes solid. So that's our priority for the day rather than tracking down the deer. We'll see if we can spot anything on the way up, but we need to be heading down to camp. This is a little bit crazy out here right now. Just whiteout conditions. Pretty good snowfall for our very first snow of the season. I'm starting to wake my way back to my truck now so we can head down to camp. This is HB's woods right here. I was trying to catch up with them, but the snow's just not helping us locate them very easily. So I'm heading back up towards the truck. I had to come in through a different way, because this time of year, whenever we get snow like this, a lot of the roads coming up through the valley get blocked off. County blocks them off because they're just too dangerous to try to drive. In these conditions, people go right off the edge of the damn cliffs. So had to come in a long way, and came into the woods a different route than I normally take. Didn't get to cover as much area as I normally cover, and everything's just off for tracking down HB this morning. So priority is getting down to the build and getting that clay out of the bank before the bank completely freezes solid. Once we get down there, we not only have to dig the clay out, we have to get that shit mixed up in this weather and get our fireplace finished off so we can fire that sumbitch up and get our cottage build warm. So that's what I'm going to be doing next, guys. Just getting down to camp and trying to get some work done in the middle of this snowstorm. Got a little 6-point here. If he's around, HB and that other big buck might be close by too. Alright guys, I got a flurry of activity around me right now. I was actually just heading out to go back up to the truck and head down to camp. I spotted this little 6-point. He started running half circle around me. I went to adjust the camera, and I run into another little 6-point as I was adjusting the camera. So I'm right in the middle where the bucks have been running, but I haven't seen the two big ones yet. I'm just kind of sitting still right now. Those other two 6-points met up, kind of trotted off to the southeast, so I'm just kind of sitting here a little bit, seeing if I can spot anything else. Apparently the bucks are bedded down right here at the south end of the woods, not too far from where my truck's at. So we're going to take a look around, see if we can get HB and that big sumbitch one filmed this morning, just as we're making our way real slowly back up towards the truck, and we'll head down to camp. We didn't get skunked on the bucks today though, which is good. A lot of young bucks running around up in here this morning. He's walking right towards me. Where's your daddy? Well, that makes 3 small bucks all in this same middle area. I didn't move very from where I captured those other two before I ran into that third. But I still ain't seen HB or that big son bitch that's running with him. So we got the younger bucks, but we don't have the two old ones. Not yet anyway. We're gonna keep looking for a little bit. Since the last time I sat down, that little hike up through the woods there, the snow's calmed down quite a bit, but the snow's really got them a little twitchy this morning, and it's got them off. They're active at the time of day when they wouldn't otherwise be active. So I'm gonna keep looking around for HB and that big son of a bitch that runs with him, see if we can catch up with them. Almost back to the truck though, and priority's getting down to camp, not playing with these boys. I am proud of the footage I got already this morning though. Pretty good times for snowfall this year. Man, kicking up all these little bucks, I almost cannot help myself from wanting to track down HB and that other big ass buck while I'm out here. I mean, I'm all the way up here in HB's woods. I got about a 3-mile drive to get down to camp. It's our first snow of the season, getting some epic footage of the smaller bucks on film this morning. I just haven't looped around to try to track down HB and that other big buck. And man, I'm just having a hard time heading back to the truck when I know I could just take a quick circle around, come back up my normal route, and see if I can kick them up. Just a quick hike up through there to see if we can get some footage of them on film here with the first snow. Of course, there is a chance that I'm not going to be able to kick them up. The snow is picking up again. It's sort of on and off right now. But damn. Man, I just can't pass the opportunity up, guys. We're going to take a quick hike. We're going to go ahead. I'm up at the thicket patch right now. I'm going to run the edge of the thicket patch down through the meadow. Old stomping grounds out here for HB. And we're going to take a quick loop up to the woods the way we normally would. Like I said, whenever it starts snowing like this, a lot of the passes up through the valley are completely closed off, so I had to come in the woods a different route than I normally would have. And it's just thrown off my whole tracking game. We have got some great footage of the younger bucks on film this morning, but no sign of HB or that other big 8-10 point, whatever it is, that runs with him. They're up and moving around a little bit with the snowfall, so we're just gonna capitalize on the opportunity to try to loop around and see if we can get the big boys captured on film here with the first snowfall, same way we did those young bucks. There's HB. Glad we caught up with him, but I don't know where that big buck that runs with him's at. This is the part where we have to be very quiet. that was a little bit better. Actually didn't have to do the circle as I was coming down through here to make my way up to start the circle. I ran into HB and a doe. They were just bedded down right down here in this little gully on the other side of these hemlocks. Good place for cover. So they just scurried off there to the west. My truck is just straight to the south. We got film of HB and his young lady here this morning, so I'm happy with that. I'm not going to chase them through the woods, try to find that bigger buck. We'll catch up with him a little bit later on. I sat with HB and that doe there for about, I don't know, maybe a half an hour, and sitting still like that froze my ass up. So we're going to get back to the truck. That'll give us a warm-up before we get down to camp, and then we'll get some work done. Good morning. Damn good morning. Really happy with that footage. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold on to it into the episode. Usually whenever I get whitetail on film or I get epic scenery on film, I just can't hold on to it until I find out in that episode. I'll put out a bonus video. And that's kind of what I did with the footage that I filmed a couple of days ago. I was out here just after sunrise trying to catch up with the boys. Didn't catch up with the boys on that day, but I was out here right at that twilight hour, and it was absolutely beautiful. The fall colors were popping, and the forest was just stunning. So I got quite a bit of that on film. Some of it just personal photos from my own collection that I really don't release on anything. And then the snow came in, and I wanted to get up here and check the woods out. Look at this. It's just beautiful out here this morning. And as I was saying earlier there, it gave us the opportunity to do a little tracking, see how the whitetail had been moving through the woods since we've been gone on down to camp. Managed to do a little bit of tracking this morning. Dust on the ground means getting the dust off of that skill set, and now we can head back up to the truck, get warm. Happy with the footage that we got this morning. A couple of does, a few of the younger bucks, HB and his girlfriend, all right here within the first couple of hours of being out in our first snowstorm of the year. But I am due for a sip of coffee, get warmed up. I forgot to bring my gloves out. That's part of my problem. Definitely going to have to get warmed up before we get down to camp, because once we get down there, the kind of work that we got to be doing today to lock that thing up, it's going to be some rough going. But we are out of time, and winter's obviously here. Got to get down there, get done what we can, and then we'll sit down there at camp and talk about how we're going to handle this winter season here on the Huntsman channel. I actually brought a different route in to camp this time. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I hiked a long way around, came in from the south end of the woods following a deer trail, and I actually found another pass to get into camp if we happen to have high floodwaters or something like that, or if the snow gets really deep. So I did find another pass. It just happens to be on the south end of the woods, which means hiking up the creek to get to camp. In order to stay out of the soggier areas and away from the water, if it does happen to be winter time and I don't want to risk getting wet, I just followed the deer trail at the top of this ridge, which is where I'm at now. And this trail actually follows a ledge all the way along this ridge and then down a pass through the southern valley. So it was actually a pretty easy route aside from the initial climb up the ridge line, but it did bring us right down to camp. So this is a view of camp from the eastern ridge. Looking down at the build, you can see the build, that little triangle right there at the center of the screen. It looks so tiny down there. All that work we put into it, and it's just this insignificant little dot from all the way up here. Let's zoom in and see what it looks like before we go down there and disturb all the snow. So there it is, our little triangle of comfort and home in the middle of all this snow from the top of the ridge. As you can see, that front eastern facing wall really doesn't get hit with any of the snow, but I'm betting the far side is pretty well plastered. But we do have one side of the shelter that's just completely protected from the elements, mostly due to the terrain. Like I was saying, all the way through the build series, the primary winds drive down through the valley, which you can see just kind of make out back there. There's a valley that goes down through there, turns that wind into a wind tunnel, so it's only really hitting the shelter from one side. This front side is the one that's most protected and also what gets the early morning sun. So looking at the shelter from a distance, you can see how the terrain and the direction that we built the shelter in plays huge factors on how the shelter itself performs. This is an east-west facing shelter. We're looking at the east face now. The west face happens to be that stone wall with a fireplace in it. So even if it does get blasted, it's going to be a heated wall, essentially. So it's not going to make much of a difference. Anyway, we got some more work to do down there, so we're going to be heading down there, tinkering around a little bit, and see how it's holding up with this first snowstorm of the winter. Here you can make out the deer tracks in the snow leading right down to camp. I've been following these tracks along this ridge. They kind of fork right here. One of them heading straight down to the creek, the other one following kind of the ridge going down into the thicket patch. We're going to go ahead and follow the heavier trail. One went that way, and it looks like maybe 2 or 3 went this way. But the deer are always taking the path of least resistance, someplace where they can get a grip. So in the wintertime, I always follow their trails because their hooves tend to tear up the ground, which gives you a little bit of a foothold, and they're not going to risk sliding down a hill when they know there's a route that they can just dig into. But even on this, with all the snow, the ice, and the melt, even the deer were still sliding, coming down through here. But as they slid, they sort of left these footholds for me to step into and make a safe descent down the ridge without having to worry about tripping up or anything like that. And even right here, they just give me a pretty good step ledge where I can sort of stop, grab a hold of the tree, and make my way on down to the bottom. The deer helping us out, showing us the way. They came down here for water, and we just followed their footsteps to come down for safety reasons, and our builder's right there. The deer know the way to camp. The creek is looking a little bit different now than it was last time we was down here. It looks cold. It really ain't that bad. I'm actually pretty warm, and we'll get into explaining that once I get up here to the shelter and we get settled in. I do have waterproof boots across the creek and shit like that. Ain't no big deal for me, really. Home sweet home. I'm actually kind of creeping up on the build because I want to get video and photos of it before I get up there and start walking around a lot, disturbing the snow. So I'm just taking my time, making it up to the shelter. This is kind of like a B-roll thing. And no shame in saying that. There's our build all covered in snow. Still gotta get the front door mounted. I didn't get it mounted last time I was out here because I needed to get more line to rig the door up, all the beams on the door. So we're going to try to get that done today. Take a look at the inside. Again, just circling around the build right now, trying to get shots of it before we disturb all the snow. Did have some deer coming up through here. Looks like they were messing around quite a bit before the last little dusting came on. Shelter's looking really good, and there's no snow laying on the inside, which is awesome. way down to the meadow, you can see how the snow completely covered the sidewalls, which is just another layer of insulation. As we heat the shelter up, that'll give us a layer of ice and kind of like igloo it. And here you can see the backside with the fireplace on there, but the fireplace has not gotten completely chinked up yet. We got the stone put in there, but we ain't got the clay put in because this snowstorm came in and messed us all up. So we still got to get the clay put on that, but at this point we could still light a fire in there and be safe. Continuing with the observations on the outside of the build, and this is just for future reference really. I do want to leave the ventilation at the top. I did have some chinking to put in here, but what I'm actually thinking about doing is with this vent is covering it with hemlock boughs, which will block the wind from driving in there but still allow oxygen to come into the build too. So I think I'm just going to cover this with hemlock boughs, kind of stuff it in there, sort of an insulation, and it's sort of just a buffer between the shelter and the primary wind. It'll still let air get in, but not so much it's going to freeze the shelter up. Coming up here to this side, again, as you can see, we still need to get the door put on, which is secondary. The door is actually laying right there. And then we get here on the inside, we have no snow at all on the inside of our shelter. That was uncut. This is my first time being inside of the build since we got down here. So there is no snow at all inside the build, which is cool. We do have a little bit here right at the fireplace. That's to be expected because we don't have the chimney on yet. But everything in here is closed up pretty damn tight. And there's the view looking out. Awesome, awesome deal. Very happy with how the build is performing. I'm gonna go back up in here real quick. Like I said, right here, I want this air vent here, but we're gonna go ahead and cover that up with hemlock boughs. We're gonna have to take a little bit of a hike to find some hemlock, but we're just gonna stuff some boughs up in there, kind of tie them and fan them out, where we still have oxygen coming into the build. The gases and stuff like that that might build up from the fireplace can get out, but it's still blocking that primary draft and a lot of the snow that might come in if it's blowing really hard. So we're going to do that real quick, go rounding up some supplies. Like I said, I'm going to have to look around because I don't have no hemlock in the immediate area, I don't think, where I can grab a bow. So we're going to take a little hike here and round up some supplies to add to the shelter, just from our observations and what we've seen here just coming up to the build. It was important for me to take a look at the build before I disturbed all the snow, and to kind of capture it on film before I got in there and tinkered around with anything. That's a reference guide for me. How is the shelter performing? How is it keeping the weather out? All of that stuff had to be noted and documented before I got in there messing around, and that includes the how the snow is laying around the shelter, not just whether or not it's coming in. I do have a little hemlock here, but she's so damn naked. I don't want to mess her up. I noted this earlier whenever I was camping. I got this hemlock tree here. Now, they're not big on resin, but I do have a lot of dead limbs on this tree that I've left here on purpose. This is like supermarket shelves right here. If I need dead standing tinder, this is prime tinder to get a fire going. It's going to burn really hot and really fast, and I got limbs all the way up through there. There ain't no point in breaking this off and taking it down to camp until I absolutely need it. I might gather up some of them and make a small bundle. Just take one or two of those limbs off and make a small bundle to keep inside the shelter, just so it's readily available, you know, the smaller diameter. But yeah, these are like supermarket shelves. You just leave the shit where it's at. You don't need to harvest everything until you need it. And right beside that little stripped off, half dying bit of hemlock, we can come over here and get bark to strip down for more tinder. But I think we're actually going to have to go up to the top of the ridge to find the supplies that we need. I would take off of that, but the limbs are a little high and they're a little naked. I want something a little bit heavier than that. The only other hemlock that happens to be in this area is all the way up in the thicket patch, and I don't want to hike up there. I'm actually going to take the ridge and go up here to the top of the ridge. I got some hemlock up in this area that we can grab a couple of bows off of just to add to the shelter today. Alright guys, I just, you can hear I'm a little winded. I just got to the very top of the ridge here. Just stepped over the top of the ridge, and here's a deer bed. There was a deer laying here. That's why there's no snow in the area. But what's bothering me is this. She's bleeding. There's blood in the snow. It's still pink, so it's rather fresh. But the deer that was laying here, she's wounded. Damn. Blood in the snow. Not good. She laid there for a while to keep that snow melted like that. She had come up the ridge. She laid down here. She's got some kind of wound. I have tracks going off that direction. I have a heavier trail over here where it looks like a bunch of them were mingling around. So I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but we do have a wounded deer here in the area. That could be a buck that was wounded in rut. I don't see a blood trail leading off, so it is bleeding, but it's not bleeding heavy. Right now I'm just sort of looking around for other sides of pink. See which direction this particular deer might have wandered off in, if there is blood drops anywhere. We're gonna follow the trail a little bit now. Having a wounded deer up in here ain't cool. Heavier trail coming through here. They're all over this ridge. They come up here, they watch me filming. They'll stand up here at the top of this ridge, watch me while I'm down there tinkering around. There's some oak leaves here you can see. There's just acorns under the snow, so it's good feeding ground for them. All this mingling around in here. I don't see any other blood, and I really don't see, oh, here we go. See the spots? This is blood, but it's a little bit older. You can still see a little bit of the pink right there. So, yeah, there's a blood splatter here. Ooh. So, the way the ground's tore up right here, all this movement around in here, it might have been 2 bucks locking horns, and one of them just got scratched. Again, I'm not seeing heavy blood. I'm just seeing evidence of a wound, a light wound, enough to make it bleed pretty good. We got blood down there where it was laying at. We got all of this activity up in here, and this ground is tore up. It looks like they might have been wrestling around up in here. We got blood splatter right there. So the deer could have, the way this is splattered, this is spray. The other blood stain that we seen was pooling. This is almost like arterial spray. So it got hit like right in this area, and as its heart pumped, it squirted the blood out, and then it eventually went over there and laid down, and that's the kind of pooling that we got whenever it was sitting still. Its heartbeat dropped down, and it was just kind of dripping out and stained that snow a little heavier. I got some more tracks going up through there. I got one single deer that went off this way. Pretty good sized deer. You can see by the size of hoof prints. It was a little bit older. The snow is still a little powdery in the middle of the prints, but that is either a giant fucking deer or the snow's melted a little bit, making those prints extend, making it look bigger than it actually is. Still looking around for more blood splatter while looking for hemlocks at the same damn time. So this deer here came over this way, dropped down the ridge, and went down to the creek bottom by itself. That's just one deer. We go back to where they fork off, this little battle area up here, and we had more deer. Another one went up through here. Looks like a couple of them. I know, went up through here, following the top of the ridge line. So one went down the ridge, the others came up here, kept foraging around. There's some evidence here where they were digging in the snow looking for food. Can't be too hurt. Got a cross trail here, two deer merging up together. Still following the same trail, no sign of blood though. Yeah, the deer were tearing this whole area up here foraging around for food. Not seeing any more blood drops, so what I'm thinking is we had two bucks get into a bit of a wrestling match back there, and one of them got cut by the antler. We found the pooling where the deer laid down, and we found the splatter from where that was probably the initial cut or wound, puncture wound. So yeah. Up here we go. We got, and let that focus there for a second. Got another stain in the snow right here. Has a blood stain. Looks like it stopped right here, stood right here, that long enough for that blood to pool. We got two heavy scrapes coming up here. They're starting to cut on the trees. We got one right there and straight across this other side, just a few feet away. This is a heavier scrape, and those are some sharp ass cuts in there. That deer has some sharp tines on it. That's almost knife blade width he's cutting into that tree with. It's a very territorial buck. Being in the rut right now, they're just probably wrestling around a bit. Do have another pool of blood back there on the ground, so we're obviously on the trail of the wounded deer. We'll keep an eye on this trail, look for more signs of an injury, and quiet down a little bit here and see if we might be able to catch up with one of them, see if they're limping along a little bit. More oak leaves up in here, which means acorns tearing this ground up looking for food. Coming up to our hemlock warehouse now. Get a lot of supplies from back here if we need them. The deer have been following along the edge of the ridge. I actually just had a Joe jump up right there in front of me, not too far away. This little hemlock grove right here would actually be the perfect place to make a natural shelter. You could camp right down there on that little plateau. It's halfway up the ridge. That'd be a perfect camp spot, to be honest. Anywhere in through here, it's just perfect cover. So we come up in here looking for supplies for our build, and we find another campsite, or worthy campsite really. Let's take a look around here real quick. Now there's the creek that flows down by the cottage build, coming up here through this hemlock grove. It's a beautiful area, green all year round. Like I said, perfect place to make a camp really. I just sort of been exploring the area a little bit. We're gonna take a little walk here before we grab our bows and head back to camp. Just sort of enjoy the scenery. These are the kind of bows that I'll be grabbing on the way back. Just not in any rush today. Had a good morning up at HB's woods, tracking that herd a bit. Here we have actual pine. good resources. That's a pretty good log right there. As I was saying, I had a pretty good hike with HB's herd today. Come down here to camp. The build at the state that it's in right now, even without having a door on it, I could heat that thing up and be comfortable as shit in there. Not really thinking about making another camp right off of the bat. We're gonna probably spend this next summer there at the cottage build before we start moving along. But hemlock grove like this, something that's green all year round, that might be something to consider for our next build. Building inside of a hemlock grove. Here we got some more signs of scrape. And whenever the deer start scraping these like this, you can see the resin coming out from all those wounds. So I can come in here. This is real heavy resin. That's heavy sap right there. If I scrape that off, that's perfect tinder. We're going to leave that right there right now. That's almost amber. But I could come back with my knife and cut that off and have a good fire starter. Just note where that stuff's at. Don't take it until you need it. Because that resin will keep seeping out and keep building up. So the deer are actually helping tearing up these pines. They're white pines, a little bit of hemlock, things like that. They're helping with those scrapes because they put those wounds in the trees and that sap kind of builds up over time. Of course, with trees like this, it takes forever because there just ain't a lot of resin in them. But you can work with it. Okay, there we are. For a moment I thought I was actually going to tie that up. So what I just did there is, you can see I got a little patchwork to do right here. It looks like my grass has moved off. Maybe the wind pushed it up a little bit. So what I've done right here is I just stuffed hemlock boughs in there. We still get good airflow. We don't want the shelter to be completely airtight. We have to have oxygen getting in here. So I just shoved the hemlock boughs in there to block snow and the main portion of the wind coming through, but we still have some spacing in there where oxygen can get in and we can work with it that way. That's looking pretty good. No, don't want it any more tighter than that, really. I like that. So that's that out of the way. Oh guys, cheers to the first fire inside of our build. So I'm very happy with the way that the build is performing. We had our very first fire in the build. It's getting a little bit later in the evening now. I actually will be filming a solo overnighter here. So we'll keep that campfire going inside there. Keep the shelter warm. I'll work on the door. That'll be my next step. This snow that we got this time, it's not going to last. I have to wait for the snow to clear out though before we can go ahead and start stacking our chimney. Like I said, this is going to melt. This is our first snowfall of the year. We have some different weather coming in that'll melt this away, and as this melts, it's going to loosen up that bank and we can get our mud formed up to go ahead and get the chimney stacked. Even without the chimney on there, the fireplace is still performing just like it would. I got the stack just high enough to where the smoke's going right up out of the shelter. So yeah, got a few more things to do on it, a few little tweaks. We got to get the door on, and we got to get the chimney stacked up there. Weather came in, kind of slowed us down a little bit, but it hasn't slowed us down enough where we can't do an overnighter out here. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to gather up some firewood. I actually just spotted a deer up on the top ridge. 2 of them. Hold on a sec, let's see if we can get them on film. There she is. Oh, we got a foot stomp. So I am sitting in the middle right now, just talking to you guys, rounding out the episode, hiking the creek. I was just about to say I was going out hunting for some firewood so we can keep our fire going tonight. And I got these 2 does up here at the top of the creek watching me. One is standing just out of sight off to the right of this one that we're looking at right now. I wouldn't be able to get it on film if I moved the camera. But they have a habit of doing this. They'll stay up here at the top of the ridge and they'll watch me filming. And they'll watch me filming forever, doing that foot stomp, sending out signals that I'm down here. And then after about a half hour, 45 minutes of watching me, they'll snort and bolt. But this herd is not like HB's herd. They're just not accustomed to me yet. They're comfortable enough with my scent that they're coming in thinking I'm leaving apples or something out here. That's probably why they're up here. They smelled me in the area. They thought I was going to leave something out here. And they're up here waiting for me to get the hell out so they can come down here and inspect the place. That's what we've been doing with these deer. It's a time-consuming, long, exhausting process, but there they are right at the top of the ridge as I'm sitting in the meadow watching us film this episode. So the wildlife is definitely thriving right here around the bushcraft build. We're going to try to keep this herd healthy and happy through the winter. It's going to be a long winter, and we're going to start our winter off with, just as I said, rounding up some firewood, and we're going to spend the night out here. So that's what's going to happen in an upcoming video. She's way up there, look at that. Way the fuck up there. But we spotted her and all that mess. And a whitetail like watching me while I'm down here at camp. I'm actually right next to the crystal. Whoop, I'm actually right next to the crystal. The crystal's right there. The build's right behind me. They're right there at the top of the ridge. I love working with the wildlife right here at camp. I love that the whitetail and the turkeys and everything else. Even whenever we're live streaming, I'm being loud as hell. The wildlife don't hesitate to come right up here to camp and hang out with us. We get them on film a little bit. They know that I'm not a threat to them, and that's what I was aiming for. My connection with the wildlife is unprecedented. I don't think anybody out there can do what I can do with these damn whitetail. They wish they could, because they're all hunters just like me. They wish they could get as close to the fucking deer as I do, but you got to think, man, I've been working with HB's herd for 2 years to be able to get as close as I do with them. This is as close as I can get with this herd in here. But I do have to make it up here to the top of the ridge. I'm trying to go around where they're at now. I'm going to head up that way because there's a brush pile up there where I can get some good firewood. So I'm going to head up there, grab the firewood, stock up the cottage, and get nestled in for the night. And with that, guys, this episode's run a little long, so I'm going to have to cut it off short here. We'll pick up where we left off next trip. So thank you guys for coming with me this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see y'all next time.